subscriber of mine asked me if I could do an ASMR video where I read a Wikipedia article and didn't eat or didn't gum chew. So I'm going to do that in this video. And he asked me to do a European country. So I'm going to choose Sweden. So yeah, thank you for watching. Sweden, formerly the Kingdom of Sweden, is a Nordic country located on the Scandinavian peninsula in northern Europe. It borders Norway to the west and north, Finland to the east, and is connected to Denmark in the southwest by a bridge tunnel across the Øresund. At 450,295 square kilometers, 173,860 square miles, Sweden is the largest Nordic country and the fifth largest country in Europe. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. The capital and largest city is Stockholm. Sweden has a population of 10.5 million and a low population density of 25.5 inhabitants per square kilometer, 66 square miles, with around 87% of Swedes residing in urban areas, which cover 1.5% of the entire land area in the central and southern half of the country. Nature in Sweden is dominated by forests and many lakes, including some of the largest in Europe. Many long rivers run from the Scandis range, primarily emptying into the northern tributaries of the Baltic Sea. It has an extensive coastline, and most of the population lives near a major body of water, with the country ranging from 55 degrees north to 69 degrees north. The climate of Sweden is diverse due to the length of the country. I chose this because I saw a documentary not a documentary. I think it was a TV series, and I thought it was in Sweden, but now I'm thinking it was actually in the Netherlands. So Germanic peoples have inhabited Sweden since prehistoric times, emerging into history as the Greats, Swedish Gotar, and Swedes, Svea, and constituting the Sea peoples known as Norsemen. An independent Swedish state emerged during the 12th century after the Black Death in the middle of the 14th century killed about a third of the Scandinavian population. The dominance of the Hanseatic League in Northern Europe threatened Scandinavia economically and politically. This led to the formation of Scandinavian Kalmar Union in 1397, which Sweden left in 1523. When Sweden became involved in the 30 Years' War on the Protestant side, an expansion of its territories began, forming the Swedish Empire, which remained one of the great powers of Europe until the early 18th century. Sweden is a highly developed country, ranked 7th in the Human Development Index. It is a constitutional monarchy and a parliamentary democracy, with legislative power vested in the 349-member unicameral Riksdag. It is a unitary state and divided into 21 countries and 290 municipalities. Sweden maintains a Nordic social welfare system that provides universal health care and tertiary education for its citizens. It has the world's 14th highest GDP per capita and ranks very highly in quality of life, health, education, protection of civil liberties, economic competitiveness, happiness, income equality, gender equality, and prosperity. Sweden joined the European Union on 1st of January 1995, but rejected Eurozone membership following a referendum. It is also a member of the United Nations, the Nordic Council, the Schengen Area, the Council of Europe, the World Trade Organization, and the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD. Etymology. The name for Sweden is generally agreed to derive from the Proto-Indo-European root SWE, meaning one's own, referring to one's own tribe from the tribal period. The native Swedish name Sverige is a compound of the words Svea and Reich, first recorded in the cognate Sveosaurus Beowulf, and Beowulf translates as realm of the Swedes, which includes the Greats in Gotaland. The contemporary English variation was derived in the 17th century from Middle Dutch and Middle Low German. As early as 1287, references are found in Middle Dutch referring to a land van Sweden, land of the Swedes, with Swede as the singular form. In Old English, the country was known as Svealand or Svearis, and in early modern English as Swedeland. Some Finnic languages, such as Finnish and Estonian, use the terms Ruotsi and Ruotsi. These variations refer to the Rus people who inhabited the coastal areas of Roslagen in Uppland and who gave their name to Russia. History, prehistory. Let me just see. Sweden's prehistory begins in the Alarrod Oscillation, a warm period around 12,000 BC, with late Paleolithic reindeer hunting camps of the Bromi culture at the edge of the ice in what is now the country's southernmost province, Scania. This period was characterized by small clans of hunter-gatherers who relied on flint technology. Sweden and its people were first described by Publius Cornelius Tacitus in his Germania 98 AD. In Germania 44 and 45, he mentions the Swedes, Sveones, as a powerful tribe with ships that had a prow at each end, long ships which kings Cunningus ruled. These Sveones is unknown, but Norse mythology presents a long line of legendary and semi-legendary kings going back to the last centuries BC. The runic script was in use among the South Scandinavian elite by at least the 2nd century AD, but all that has survived from the Roman period in inscriptions demonstrating that the people of South Scandinavia spoke Proto-Norse at the time, a language ancestral to Sweden and other North Germanic languages. In the 6th century, Jordan Ness names two tribes living in Skansa, both of which are now considered to be synonyms with the Swedes. The Sweetidi and Swehans. The Swehans were known to the Roman world as suppliers of black fox skins, and according to Jordanes, had very fine horses, similar to those of the Lyringi of Germania, Alivero gens ibi morator sohans quevelad Lyringi equus attenter eximis. Okay, I have no idea what that was, but okay. Vikings. The Swedish Viking Age lasted roughly from the 8th century to the 11th century. It is believed that Swedish Vikings and Gutar mainly traveled east and south, going to Finland, Estonia, the Baltic countries, Russia, Belarus, Ukraine, the Black Sea, and even as far as Baghdad. Their routes passed through the Dnieper south to Constantinople, on which they carried out numerous raids. The Byzantine Emperor Theophilos noticed their great skill in war and invited them to serve as his personal bodyguard, known as the Varangian Guard. The Swedish Vikings, called the Rus, are believed to be the founders of Kievan Rus. The Arab traveler Ibn Fadlan described these Vikings, saying, "I have seen the Rus as they came on their merchant journeys, and encamped by Litil. I have never seen more perfect physical specimens, tall as date palms, blonde and ruddy. They wear neither tunics nor kaftans, but the men wear a garment which covers one side of the body and leaves one hand free. Each man has an axe, a sword, and a knife, and keeps each by him at all times. The swords are broad and grooved, of Frankish sort. The actions of these Swedish Vikings are commemorated on many runestones in Sweden, such as the Grease runestones and Varangian runestones. There was also considerable participation in expeditions westward, which are commemorated on stones such as England runestones. The last major Swedish Viking expedition appears to have been the ill-fated expedition of Ingvar the Fair. Traveled to Sörkland, the region southeast of the Caspian Sea. Its members are commemorated on the Ingvar runestones, none of which mentions any survivor. Kingdom of Sweden, The actual age of the Kingdom of Sweden is unknown. Establishing the age depends mostly on whether Sweden should be considered a nation of the sphere. Sveonas ruled Svealand, or if the emergence of the nation started with the sphere and the Gotargites of Gotaland being united near the one ruler. In the first case, Svealand was first mentioned as having one single ruler in the year 98 by Tacitus, but it is almost impossible to know for how long it had been this way. However, historians usually start the line of Swedish monarchs from when Svealand and Gotaland were ruled under the same king, namely Eric the Victorious Great and his son Olaf Skotkonung in the 10th century. These events are often described as the consolidation of Sweden, although substantial areas were conquered and incorporated later. It is not known how long they existed. The epic poem Beowulf describes the semi-legendary Swedish greatest wars in the 6th century. Gotaland is, in this sense, mainly includes Hanseatic and Gotland domestic. Småland was at the time of very little interest to anyone due to the deep pine forests, and only the city of Kalmar with its castle was of importance. The southwest parts of the Scandinavian peninsula consisted of 3 Danish provinces, Scania, Blekinge, and Holland. North of Holland, Denmark had a direct border to Norway and its province, Bohuslän, but there were Swedish settlements along the southern coastline of Norrland. During the early stages of the Scandinavian Viking Age, Ystad in the Danish province Scania and Bithyken on the Gotland were flourishing centers of trade, but were not parts of the early Swedish kingdom. Remains of what is believed to have been large market dating from 600 to 700 CE have found in Ystad. In Bithyken, an important center of trade in the Baltic region during the 9th and 10th century, remains have been found of a large Viking Age harbor with shipbuilding yards and handicraft industries. Between 800 and 1000, trade brought an abundance of silver to Gotland. Saint Ansgar is usually credited with introducing Christianity to Sweden in 829, but the new religion did not begin to fully replace paganism until the 12th century. The period between 1100 and 1400 was characterized by internal power struggles and competition among the Nordic kingdoms. In the years 1150 to 1293, according to the legend of Eric the fourth, I believe it's IX, and Eric chronicles Swedish kings made first, second, and third crusade to Finland and started conflicts with the Rus, who no longer had any connections with Sweden. The Swedish colonization of the coastal areas of Finland also started during the 12th century and 13th century. In the 14th century, the colonization began to be more organized, and by the end of the century, several of the coastal areas of Finland were inhabited mostly by Swedes, except for provinces of Scania, Blekinge, and Halland in the southwest of the Scandinavian peninsula, which were parts of the Kingdom of Denmark. During this time, feudalism never developed in Sweden, and it did in the rest of Europe. As a result, the peasantry remained largely a class of free farmers throughout the most of Swedish history. Slavery, also called thraldom, was not common in Sweden, and what slavery there was tended to be driven out of existence by the spread of Christianity, by the difficulty of obtaining slaves from lands east of the Baltic Sea, and by the development of cities before the 16th century. Indeed, both slavery and serfdom were abolished altogether by a decree of King Magnus IV, I think that's the fourth, in 1335. It's Ivy, and Sweden remains a poor and economically backward country in which barter was the primary means of exchange. In the middle of the 14th century, Sweden was struck by the Black Death. A population of Sweden and most of Europe was decimated same territory did not reach the numbers of the year 1348 again until the beginning of the 19th century. One third of the population died from 1349 to 1351. During this period, the cities began to acquire greater rights and were strongly influenced by German merchants of the Hanseatic League, active especially at Visby. In 1319, Sweden and Norway were united under King Magnus Eriksson. And in the 1397, Queen Margaret I of Denmark affected the personal union of Sweden, Norway, and Denmark through the Kalmar Union. However, Margaret's successors, whose rule was also centered in Denmark, were unable to control the Swedish nobility. Thanks for watching. Okay, bye.